Hello guys, as I mentioned earlier, to save your time, I will explain the structure of the code on the server side because the code is a little bit long. However, we will write the client side code together. So let's get started. To build a simple HTTP server that handles the client request, we're going to use a built-in library which is called http.server. So we start by defining our Kali IP address and the listening port number. And then we create HTTP server class object, and then we pass the IP address, the port number, and a class handler. This class handler, which is called myHandler, defines what we should do when we receive a GET or POST request in our server, and we will talk about it in a second. After that, we call the server_forever function to start the HTTP service or to start listening on port 80, and it will run forever. However, if we make a Ctrl+C, which will trigger a keyboard interrupt, this will trigger this exception and it will close the HTTP server. Now under myHandler class, we have two main functions which are the most important part of the code. The doGet function is responsible to handle the HTTP GET method from the client. So if we got an HTTP GET request, it will trigger this function. And we will start by getting the command input from the user, and then we will return HTTP status 200 to indicate that we got the HTTP request from the client successfully. Then we set the HTTP content type of the HTTP header, and this is used to indicate the type of the content. This field tells our HTTP client about the type of the data itself, and in our case it is text/HTML. Then the wfile.write function is equivalent to the send function that we used earlier in TCP client, and this function will just send the command that we want to execute. Okay, so at this point we expect the client to execute the command and send the result back to us using HTTP post. So if we got an HTTP post, we will do the similar thing to what we have done in the GET. We will return an HTML status 200 to say or to indicate to our client that we got the post without any problem. The header content length specify how many bytes of data does the HTTP post contain. The returned value is a string, and it needs to be converted into integer before we pass this value as a parameter to the rfile.read function. The rfile.read function, or the read function itself, will read the actual payload. And you can think about it, it's similar to the receive function that we have done previously in the TCP reverse shell. Finally, we store the actual payload of the data which contains the command execution in a post variable, and then we print out the actual output. Okay, and that's all what we need to do on the server side. So on the client side, we will use a Python library called requests, which is a very high level library to send our GET and POST methods. It makes our life easy where we can do a GET or POST in only single line. So to begin with, we need to install this library using pip tool. So here I will just go and open a command prompt in Windows, and I will just do pip install requests. Okay, and let's start a new Python file here. I will go file, new file, and let me minimize this. So we will start by importing the request library, requests, and then we will import subprocess, and finally we will import the time library. The time library will be used to make the 3-second sleep before making a new HTTP GET to the Kali Linux. Again, this is only to have a continuity of our shell. So let's try and just to save this file. I will go to the desktop and type HTTP client. Let's say, for example, 123 and save. Just to make sure that we don't have any syntax error, I will just do and click on import. So we have installed and imported the request library successfully. Okay, after that we create an infinite loop. So I will do while true, and then we're gonna create or make the HTTP get query or get method, and that's gonna happen using requests.get function. Then here we type HTTP, then the IP address of our Kali Linux 192.168.0.152, and remember the port number was port 8080 that we are listening on the Kali side. And then I'm gonna create a variable called command equal rec.text. So what does that mean? We simply create a GET request to our Kali server. Here we specify the IP address of the Kali Linux and the port number that we are listening on. After that, we get the response from the Kali using the text function, which contains the command that we should execute. So to summarize that really quickly, what we have done so far, let me just get my pen here. So this line will trigger the do-get function on the Kali side. We will get the command from the user, and then we will send it back to the client or to the target. The target will get that command, and then it will store it in a command variable. Okay, let's move on. Okay, and similar to what we have done in the TCP reverse shell, once we get the command, we need to check first if it's a terminate command. So I will type if terminate in command, then we will break the loop. Otherwise, we're gonna execute the command, and I will just do a paste for the sub process because it's quite long. So it's literally copy paste for the one that we have created in the TCP reverse shell, sub process.popen. We pass the command. Okay, and the last step is to send the execution result or the error as a post method. So I will just type post underscore response, for example, and then the function is requests dot post, and then we need to pass the URL, and again the URL is http 192.168.0.152, and it's port 8080. And then I will type comma. Let me just move the screen a little bit. Okay, and the data that we want to send is the output of the command. So it's gonna be cmd.stdout.read, and then close the read parentheses, and then close the post parentheses. And I will just again copy and paste this entire line. So copy and paste, but this time instead of the standard output, we will send the standard error in case we got an error message or an exception. So let me just go to the left a little bit. Okay, so once we have done this, last step is, as we said, is to sleep for 3 seconds and then repeat the entire process. So here I will just do time.sleep function, and then type number 3 to sleep for 3 seconds. So let's save the output. Okay, let's give it a quick test. So let me just start with the server side. So let's run this, and then go to the client side. We type run, And here we go, we got a shell terminal. So let's type, for example, dir. And as you can see, we send the command as get and the output of the command execution as a post, as we explained. So let's try with, for example, run command. So dir, so it's not recognized, ipconfig. And last thing, let's try to do terminate. So here we can see the script is still running on the client side. So terminate, and as you can see, the script has been terminated here. And to terminate on the server side, we need to do Control plus C, and again Control plus C will call this exception, which is the key port interrupt, and it will close the HTTP server. Okay guys, I hope that this lecture has been informative for you, and in the next lecture we will see how to transfer file using our HTTP shell. Thanks for watching.